We need hope, or else we cannot endure. Hello, my lovely friends, it's Margaret, and it is time for another Fresh Reads Friday. For those of you that are new to the channel, Fresh Reads Friday is my review series where I occasionally tell you about books that I have read and enjoyed. Today, we're going to be talking about the Court of Thorns Roses trilogy by Sarah J. Maas. Y'all, I was not expecting to come out of last year as a Court of Thorns Roses trash. And yet here we are. As far as individual ratings go, I gave A Court of Thorns and Roses 3 stars, A Court of Mist and Fury 5 stars, and A Court of Wings and Ruin I gave 4 stars. Definitely A Court of Mist and Fury is the strongest book for me, but you know how I am. I'm all about that romance life. Just if the romance isn't strong, yeah. A Court of Thorns and Roses is about Feyre, and she is a girl living in the human world below the wall. Above the wall is where all of the high fae live. And while she is out hunting to help provide for her family, one day she accidentally kills a fae creature, one of the fae guardians that guards the wall. What the treaty between the humans and the fae says is that if you kill one of the high fae, you gotta give up your life. Luckily for Feyre, the way that the High Lord who comes to collect her interprets that is that instead of her having to die, she can come and live in his court and be a part of his court. Basically, he collects her, takes her to his court, and then she kind of starts to discover that things are not quite right in the Fae realm. Not in the ways that match up with any of the stories that she has been told as a girl, but more in the way that, like, everyone is in danger. This is a very interesting take on the Beauty and the Beast mythology. It's a loose retelling. And if you get to the end of the first book and into the second book, you will understand why it is a loose retelling, but praise the Lord that it is. Because I don't know what I would have done if things had not done what they did. For those of you that don't know, Court of Thorns and Roses was originally released it was supposed to be part of the new adult market, which is much older than the young adult market. It's more in the college age area. Unfortunately, the new adult market kind of imploded on itself, and so they had to shelve A Court of Thorns and Roses with YA, which is kind of where it should not be. But there was a choice that was made. It was a choice. Like I said, I enjoyed the series, not the biggest fan of the first book. The first book left me kind of going, why does this book exist? Once I got into book 2 and 3, I understood why the series is structured the way it is structured, but yeah, I wasn't a big fan of how things, like, It's hard to tell you why I didn't like it without getting into spoilers for books 2 and 3. One of the things I do want to say that I really liked is the way that Sarah J. Maas kind of juxtaposes the 2 different love interests, because this does have a love triangle, unfortunately for me. She really hits on 2 different things, and the first one is that when someone experiences kindness for the first time in their life, or in a long time, it really does warp how they see the situations that they are being put in. And then the second thing that I really liked about this series is that it shows the difference between someone wanting to protect you because they feel like they own you, they feel like you belong to them, and then someone wanting to protect you because they care about you, but they still respect your own agency and your own decisions. I liked that. I thought that was a really interesting parallel and comparison. Now, I'm not going to say who is what, because that again, spoilers, but I really did like that. It does have one of my favorite new OTPs. Like, they're twisted, they're a mess, but I love them anyway. The only real thing, besides the fact that the first book I was like, why is this even happening, although I agree with why it happened now, just purely because of that, just purely because of that parallel and those 2 ideas. But one of the things I really didn't like is just, I'm not a big fan of sex scenes in general. Usually I skip over them because it's just not something I want to know about my characters. I'm not interested in that and necessarily when I'm reading. But I did, like, obviously, was you're skipping past, you're gonna see stuff, and I'm sorry, some of the sex scenes were just laughable. Just some of the way she phrased stuff, it was just, it was not sexy, okay? It was more hilarious than sexy. As far as her characters go, she has a really interesting cast of characters. They are not the most diverse cast of characters, especially not racially. I don't think, I've heard people talk about certain characters being people of color, but from what I read, I did not get that feeling from most of them. Now, granted, I did read this really fast, so I might have missed a few key details, like what people who were not the 2 I was most concerned with looked like. Whoops. I did enjoy all of them. I did think that they had a great purpose. I did think that they all built and led towards the story. There wasn't a single one that I was like, I don't care for this. I mean, there were characters I didn't care for, but you weren't supposed to. Does that make sense? You're supposed to hate the characters that you hate. I liked how each of them all had one specific goal for the most part, but they all had different reasons that they were kind of, or different ways they were kind of going towards that goal. Feyre ends up getting caught in this whole basically like this whole war that's been going on since before she was born, because some of these people are hundreds and hundreds of years old. And she gets caught up in this, and she ends up getting drawn into this. It was interesting to see how she gets drawn into that and how she reacts to some of it, because she was a lot calmer in some of these situations than I would have been. Much calmer in many of these situations than I would have been. Like, I don't even know how she kept her calm. I don't. I liked the main love interest. I know he's kind of seems like a jerk in the first. It definitely seems like a jerk in the first book. And then in the second book, has his moments. But at the same time, like, all of those moments have a reason and a purpose behind them. Other people's safety is involved. There's just a whole bunch of stuff, like backstory and stuff, that why, like, it's not one of those, like, he's a jerk just because he can be a jerk, but he just comes off, you know, he seems like a jerk, but he has, like, there are reasons that he cannot be as open necessarily as you should be with someone you're romantically interested in. Once you see past the whole facade that he's having to put up for reasons, once you see past that, you understand it, and you're okay with it. Especially since once he knows he can trust Feyre, completely different person, okay? Okay. This does not have a stellar plot. I mean, it was an interesting take on Beauty and the Beast, I will say that. But honestly, the best book is the second book. The third book I really enjoyed, I really liked. It didn't have the great big romantic moments that the second book had, so it wasn't quite my favorite. Maybe if I hadn't read them both in one weekend, it would have had a chance at being a 5-star book, because in general, I just liked. It's not something you're gonna be going, oh my gosh, this plot is groundbreaking, it is amazing. If you're plot driven, you might not like this book. They're definitely a character-driven series. There's definitely a lot of character introspection. Again, I like that. I like sitting with the characters and listening to them think out and reason out and figure out what's going on. And then, yeah, I mean, I like inner monologue a lot. Maybe because my inner monologue dictates so much of my life. I mean, it's not something that just sits there. Like, things move and people are doing things, and there's definitely stuff that happens. Also, if you're a fan of, like, all the really great fanfic-y tropes, this is for you. I feel like I need to put that out there, because this book has so many moments that we go back, like, we go and we write about it. Maybe that's why people don't like the plot as much, because they do have those down moments where the characters are kind of sitting and processing and getting to be just characters and not having to worry about dying. Like, all of those things that you go to read fanfic for, it's got those, especially in the second book. It's just made me so happy. I cannot talk about the second book in coherent sentences without spoiling things, and even then I'm not sure they would be coherent sentences. The world building was this interesting mix of, like, fantasy and modern stuff. Like, it definitely was a high fantasy world, but at the same time people were wearing sweaters, which I feel is a little bit more of a modern invention. I could be wrong about that, but I liked it. I liked how they had magic to, like, instead of using electricity, they used magic to explain a whole bunch of stuff. That kind of thing. I like that. I like that kind of interpretation of how can we use magic to supplant the modern day luxuries that we have in our world. All in all, I enjoyed it. It is the perfect, like, when I say the perfect trashy romance book, you know what I mean. Like, it's one of those books that you're not reading it because it is the best prose. You're not reading it because it's like some high form of literature. You're reading it because it keeps you turning the pages, it gets you engaged in the stories and the characters, and you cannot put it down. Literally, I sat down on a Saturday morning to read, like, maybe a chapter, and I looked up at 6 p.m. that evening and had finished the entire second book. That's what happened, guys. I just lost track of time, stopped caring about anything that was supposed to be done, and I read the dang book. And then I about died because I did not have book 3. Luckily, I was able to actually get a hold of a digital version through Scribd. Thank goodness they had that. But, like, my friends, let me tell you, when you finish book 2, you want book 3. I'm warning you about that now. Just, not my favorite ending in the world. But Rick Riordan's done me worse, so it's fine. fun. If you have read this, let me know down below in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. That is it for now, my friends. Happy reading, and I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye! A Court of Thorns Roses is about Claire, apparently. I guess if you can laugh at it together, that's great. We're gonna cut that out. Yeah, I don't know what I'm saying, guys. I'm sorry. So coherent right now, Margaret. You're doing great.